you got talking in California about small-town Pennsylvanians who have had tough economic times in recent years, and you said they get bitter, and they cling to guns, or they cling to their religion, or they cling to antipathy toward people who are not like them. Now, you said you misspoke. You said you mangled what it was you wanted to say. But we've talked to a lot of voters. Do you understand that some people in this state find that patronizing and think that you said actually what you meant?
Well, I think there's no doubt that I can see how people were offended. It's not the first time that I've made a statement that was mangled up. It's not going to be the last. But let me be very clear about what I meant, because it's something that I've said in public. It's something that I've said on television, which is that people are going through very difficult times right now. And we are seeing it all across the country, and that was true even before the current economic hardships that are stemming from the housing crisis. This is the first economic expansion that we just completed in which ordinary people's incomes actually went down when adjusted for inflation, at the same time as their costs of everything from health care to gas at the pump have skyrocketed. And so the point I was making was that when people feel like Washington's not listening to them, when they're promised year after year, decade after decade, that their economic situation is going to change, and it doesn't, then politically they end up focusing on those things that are constant, like religion. They end up feeling this is a place where I can find some refuge. This is something that I can count on. They end up being much more concerned about votes around things like guns, where traditions have been passed on from generation to generation, and those are incredibly important to them. And yes, what is also true is that wedge issues, hot-button issues, end up taking prominence in our politics. And part of the problem is that when those issues are exploited, we never get to solve the issues that people really have to get some relief on.
I don't believe that my grandfather or my father or the many people whom I have had the privilege of knowing and meeting across Pennsylvania over many years cling to religion when Washington is not listening to them. I think that is a fundamental sort of misunderstanding of the role of religion and faith in times that are good and times that are bad. And I similarly don't think that people cling to their traditions like hunting and guns either when they are frustrated with the government. I just don't believe that's how people live their lives. Now, that doesn't mean that people are not frustrated with the government. We have every reason to be frustrated, particularly with this administration. But I can see why people would be taken aback and offended by the remarks. And I think what's important is that we all listen to one another and we respect one another. And we understand the different decisions that people make in life. Because we're a stronger country because of that.
And, the notion that somehow that the American people are going to be distracted once again by comments not made by me, but somebody who is associated with me, that I have disowned, I think doesn't give the American people enough credit.
You've disowned him?
The comments that I've disowned, then that is not something that I think...
But you do believe he's as patriotic as you are?
This is somebody who's a former Marine. And so I believe that he loves this country. But I also believe that he's somebody who, because of the experiences he's had over the course of a lifetime, is also angry about the injustices that he's seen.
Well, I think in addition to the questions about Reverend Wright and what he said and when he said it and for whatever reason he might have said these things, there were so many different variations on the explanations that we heard. And it is something that I think deserves further exploration. Because clearly what we've got to figure out is how we're going to bring people together in a way that overcomes the anger, overcomes the divisiveness and whatever bitterness there may be out there. It is clear that as leaders we have a choice who we associate with and who we apparently give some kind of seal of approval to. And I think that it wasn't only the specific remarks, but some of the relationships with Reverend Farrakhan, with giving the church bulletin over to the leader of Hamas to put a message in. These are problems, and they raise questions in people's minds. So this is a legitimate area, as everything is when we run for office, for people to be exploring and trying to find answers.
And I was in your court a couple of weeks ago. How do you reconcile the campaign and credibility that you have when you made those comments about what happened getting off the plane in Bosnia, which totally misrepresented what really happened on that day? You really lost my vote. And what can you tell me to get that vote back?
Well, Tom, I can tell you that I may be a lot of things, but I'm not dumb. And I wrote about going to Bosnia in my book in 2004. I laid it all out there. And you're right. On a couple of occasions in the last weeks, I just said some things that weren't in keeping with what I knew to be the case and what I had written about in my book. And, I'm embarrassed by it. I have apologized for it. I've said it was a mistake. And it is, I hope, something that you can look over. Because clearly I am proud that I went to Bosnia. It was a war zone. General Wesley Clark is here in the audience with me as one of my major supporters. He and I were talking about it before I came out. Our soldiers were there to try to police and keep the peace in a very dangerous area. They were totally in battle gear. There were concerns about potential dangers. The former president of Bosnia has said that he was worried about the safety of the situation. So I know that it is something that some people have said, wait a minute, what happened here? But I have talked about this and written about it. And then, unfortunately, in a few occasions, I was not as accurate as I have been in the past. But I know, too, that being able to rely on my experience of having gone to Bosnia, gone to more than 80 countries, having represented the United States in so many different settings, gives me a tremendous advantage going into this campaign, particularly against Senator McCain. So I will either try to get more sleep, Tom, or have somebody who is there as a reminder to me. You can go back for the past 15 months. We both have said things that turned out not to be accurate. That happens when you're talking as much as we have talked. But I'm very sorry that I said it, and I have said that it just didn't jive with what I had written about and knew to be the truth.
In your relationships, a gentleman named William Ayers. He was part of the Weather Underground in the 1970s. They bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, and other buildings. He's never apologized for that. And in fact, on 9/11, he was quoted in the New York Times saying, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." An early organizing meeting for your state Senate campaign was held at his house, and your campaign has said you were friendly. Can you explain that relationship for the voters and explain to Democrats why it won't be a problem?
George, but this is an example of what I'm talking about. This is a guy who lives in my neighborhood, who's a professor of English in Chicago, who I know and who I have not received some official endorsement from. He's not somebody who I exchange ideas from on a regular basis. And the notion that somehow, as a consequence of me knowing somebody who engaged in detestable acts 40 years ago when I was 8 years old, somehow reflects on me and my values doesn't make much sense, George.
I think that is a fair general statement. But I also believe that Senator Obama served on a board with Mr. Ayers for a period of time, the Woods Foundation, which was a paid directorship position. And if I'm not mistaken, that relationship with Mr. Ayers on this board continued after 9/11 and after his reported comments, which were deeply hurtful to people in New York.